Hello, my friends. Welcome back to the channel. So, I've got somebody really interesting for you to meet today. A little over a year ago, I was invited to be on the Broadcasting Seeds podcast, hosted by my now friend Bennett from New York. And it was the first podcast appearance I'd done outside of the UAP file, so I was a little bit daunted, but really excited to do it. And as I'm sure you can imagine, next thing you know, I'd been yammering on for an hour and a half about UAP and strangeness and spookiness and all sorts of stuff that I find really interesting. But it was only really when we finished that I realised that I hadn't asked many questions about my host and his involvement. And it turns out that Bennett is a fascinating character. He's been a policeman, he's been a Marine, and he is no stranger to high strangeness, particularly having encounters, first-hand encounters with Sasquatch. Now, I know that in the current sort of mainstream narrative, we're told, oh, that's a class 1 tetra, and that's a class 4 baked potato, and that's a class 6 jellyfish. And that, frankly, is just not how this works. We do not understand the phenomena. And so to put it in little boxes and pigeonholes like that is ridiculous. This thing seems to change according to the observer and according to culture, manifesting in a myriad of different ways. Well, Bennett gives a platform to people that are a little out of the mainstream, and you will hear things that are considered woo, which, whatever that means, it's a host of people that are parallel to the normal in the truest sense. So what you're about to hear is a good chat between two friends where we get into real high strangeness, and you will see a startling amount of crossovers between what we're seeing in UAP and what the rest of the world has been seeing in the paranormal. I hope you really enjoy it. If you do, there are links to the Broadcasting Seeds podcast below. There's also a link to buy me a coffee if you think it's worth it, and I'll see you on the next one.
The jackassery that is podcasting.
Exactly. This crazy secret world. Everybody thinks we're so polished and we've all got
Oh
Lamborghinis
yeah,
from YouTube and
nightmare,
everything.
nightmare.
Yeah. Yeah. So, Bennett, I have so much respect for you and what you do. We first met when I was on your fantastic show, Broadcasting Seeds, and I I'm a little tired of this keyhole that there's like a keyhole that seems to be the appropriate topics for high strangeness and UFOs
Right,
and like Grant Cameron says, if you're a pilot or a physicist, you can say, yes, I saw this craft and everybody believes you. But if you're an experiencer or a witness
right.
to high strangeness or a cryptid or any kind of entity or anything off that playbook, it's like they put a bag over your head and put you in a little box at the back of the stage and nobody wants to hear from you. So
Yes,
I really respect the way that you have widened the aperture and given a platform to so many people with so many different thoughts and beliefs. It's
I
a
appreciate it.
powerful thing. And the
Yeah.
thing is, like, we don't understand what's going on anyway. So
No,
even though
none of
everyone's
us,
got
none
like
of
a
it.
favorite little niche of whatever it is, whether it's military secrets or types of craft, like at some point one of the people that you've interviewed, if not all of them, are going to be, we're going to look back and go, oh, damn, that guy got it, that girl got it the whole time. So I really appreciate that you give people a platform.
My pleasure. I appreciate you saying that. It's it's it is something that I love. I just can't keep myself in the box, man. Because this all started off as a Sasquatch kind of like adventure, right? Because that is what I've really experienced as a person. Sasquatch paranormal, right? I've never. That's one of the reasons I reached out to you is because I've never really had like a UAP or a UFO, whatever you want to call them, experience. And I've been out there, man. With my time in the military, I mean, spent some time in really remote places and just never, I don't know. It's one of those things that I've never experienced. Um but it fascinates me, right? But along with that, I think what I like to do is look for the where everything rhymes, not where everything diverges. And I think too often people are looking for what's different instead of what's where things mesh. Um, so that's what drives me now. I mean, everything from biblical prophecy to drone technology and the correlation with UAPs and other things with that. I think they're all this whole world's connected. And so when it comes to that, I feel like that's what we need to focus on, not what's different. And it's just, it's all corny and kumbaya, everybody. But at the end of the day, I think we're gonna find that so much of these things cross-pollinate. It's gonna make your head spin. So
I totally agree, man. I mean, we've gone from the people that were considered woo or spiritual or the hippies
right,
on one corner, and then so-called science and respectability on one. But even Einstein was like, I can't explain this. This is spooky. It's spooky action at a distance. And now we're getting to a point where it's almost becoming pyramidal, and your Chris Bledsoes and that are being dragged in by the CIA to help them with their
yes,
studies.
right,
And the hippies, I mean, Jack Sarfati wrote a book called The Hippies That Saved Science, because they're the science is catching up with what people have been saying. So
right,
it's an important thing. But I mean, you mentioned Sasquatch. I mean, if we take away the names and the connotations, there's people that are just die-hard interested in UAP. But when you
yes,
look at the historical accounts, some of the crews of the UAP are big furry dudes. But because it
yes,
comes out of a saucer, they go, it's an alien and it's got to be from Zeta Reticuli and stuff. And it's like, no, 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 no.
yeah,
Whereas if you
yeah,
look
yeah,
at the phenomenology, it tends to be individuals or small groups of people away from society, and then something extraordinary will pop into view for a few seconds, kind of give them a little, hello or whatever, and blow their worldview apart, and then
right.
disappear again. And that you could swap that for Mothman, a Sasquatch, a flying saucer, and it seems to be that what you're experiencing isn't the true experience. The experience is something that's shaking your worldview apart and setting you on this weird world that we're in.
I mean, even the term, we like to use the term high strangeness now, right? High strangeness is a term that was coined by a UFO researcher, Dr. J. Allen Hynek. And he used it to describe bizarre, often surreal phenomenon that accompany paranormal events, phenomena that go well beyond UFO sightings, or even cryptid encounters, right? In both the US and places like the UK and in Europe, right? High strangeness manifests in, I mean, we said diverse ways, right? Often overlapping categories, all of them. UFOs, cryptids, hauntings, psychic phenomenon, interdimensional encounters, portals, all these things. Um, right? So this was
Yeah,
a term even coined by a UFO researcher because in his extensive research, he's come across all this stuff together. So,
yeah, yeah. That was certainly like when you look at what the work that NIDS did with Colm Kelleher and Bigelow, like it wasn't just flying saucers. It was the
right.
whole spectrum
Yeah,
of any
for
time the
sure.
crayon goes outside the lines of what we can explain. So I
Yeah,
mean, they were talking about werewolves and some really weird stuff, but
yeah,
one person's high strangeness is another person's culture. I mean, if you imagine if you've grown up on a desert island and a helicopter goes past, that's high strangeness, but to us, it's something that is explainable. So I really appreciate the conversation and kind of just suspending disbelief for long enough to
right.
look where these crossovers are.
And this stuff happens everywhere. I mean, like Bigfoot, I'll say Bigfoot, Sasquatch, whatever you want to call it. There's growing evidence of a Sasquatch type creature even in the UK. I
Yeah.
mean, there has been for years, but the woodwose, the things like that, whatever you want to call it. I mean, I know a couple of researchers in the UK who have had sightings and made films and written books and the whole thing. So it's not just a cultural phenomenon. And as we know, Sasquatch, Bigfoot, I mean that's worldwide. It's definitely not a North American phenomenon. I mean, yes, the Bigfoot name came from us, but it's been called other things, wild men, whatever, across all time, right?
Yeah.
So that's I yeah, man. I come to the realization that the more I dig into all these things, the less I know about anything, and it it's just it's exhausting and yet completely invigorating at the same time. So I think you just have to know that if you are in the search of, I think what we're all in search of is some type of knowledge, right? Or truth. And we just don't want to be lied to. And I feel like, and what ends up happening is that, and I'll use the blanket term, the enemy, it lies to us. And whether that's, take it for what it is, whether you think it's the devil or you think it's, the Illuminati or conspiratorial shadowy organizations that, you know, want us, dumbed down and subservient, right? Again, they all rhyme. They're all connected,
Yeah.
period.
Anything outside of normal and it is a risk to the continuation of the power structures that we've got. I mean, Grant Cameron put that brilliantly. He's like, the job of a government isn't to enlighten everybody, it's to govern, it's to maintain. A corporation wants stability. It does not want like, oh, God, actually the whole world's different, and that's chaos, and that's
Yes.
not something that's good for your shareholders. So
Yeah. I feel like the tribal system is breaking down a little bit. Um, I think we're in, yeah, anyway, it's just,
I totally agree. I think we're in a very catalytic time where a lot of people are losing faith in institutions and listening a bit
yeah,
more to people
but
that have
things are just
experienced it.
shifting to like different beliefs. And it's one of those things like there, we're always looking for something to believe in, right? And, I guess what you choose to believe in, is kind of the direction and the camp that you sit in, right?
Yeah,
And,
yeah, yeah,
I mean, one of the things that I've encountered over the past bunch of years is that we talk about science, right? And I've seen more scientists become religious from their search of science because it's the only thing that makes sense. And we can be anti-religion all that we want, and we can fight against religion. That's fine, but because who's right? Again, we don't know. So, uh, I suggest that we all just kind of get along and search for the truth together. That's kind of how I look at it. And people always like to use the term facts. Don't like, well, what are facts?
yeah.
What is truth? It can totally be manipulated. I think a lot of us inherently know what's right and what's wrong inside of us. And I think we need to go more with that. And I think when you do that and you use your gut and you use your heart, I don't need to find like-minded people. I need to find like-hearted people. And
Love
um,
that.
yeah, so with that being said, they can be from any. I'm not. Oh, you're absolutely wrong with your theories on, whether Bigfoot is uh, blood and bone, or is there an interdimensional thing? People like hate each other over those things,
Yeah.
and I think that's what the enemy wants. They want us all scattered,
Definitely.
And it happens in every genre. Whether it's UAPs, cryptids,
Yeah.
paranormal, all of it, all
It's
of it. It's
it's a weird thing. I mean, obviously, you can scale it up to politics, and it's like if you're either a red or a
yes,
blue, and we're the good guys and they're the bad guys, and there's no gray area and there's no crossovers because it's like football teams in England. Everyone's
yes, yeah, yeah,
they
yeah,
love the same sport, but they're throwing bottles at each other in the meantime. And
right,
when it gets down to our little niches, and then a niche within a niche, it's like we're small enough. We don't need to be fighting each other.
yeah, right,
Can we just get
absolutely,
along and say things are a little weird? That's okay.
yeah,
That should be enough. But everybody, I think there's a part of our like ontological immune system that's like, no, I need to be right. I need something to hang on to. And so
yeah,
if you're not on that hill the same as somebody else, then we criticize the other person's hill. And that's that when we're such a small niche of society, because most of my friends are like, oh yeah, that's really cool, Tom, but that's not going to help me pay the bills. I've still got to go, still got to go to work. Um,
yeah,
so I think we are our own worst enemy, and whether the enemy is catalytic to that, which I think there's a great deal of proof of, then we should be standing with our backs to each other, looking out rather than looking in and calling each other
yeah.
names.
I mean, they're out here trying to get us, not, you know. And
Exactly.
it's, absolutely easier to have other people fight your battles than you. I think we just need humility, and too often, and ego, you know, checking your ego
Yeah.
because none of it matters. It doesn't, I mean, I don't watch sports anymore. I just don't. Because I found it very, I look at it as the gladiatorial games in Rome, as the bread and circuses, and it's just a distraction. That's all American football is. That's all football is. That's all baseball. That's the way I look at it, is it just foments, hey, look over here at this nice shiny stuff, but here's what's going on down over here. I, I just look at it as a giant distraction. I do. Uh, I will be honest. The only sporting event that I watch religiously every year is the Tour de France.
Nice.
Makes no sense, but ever since I was a kid, man, for like 37 years, I've watched it every year. And it's coming up here soon. Uh, but like Tour de France, World Cup next year, we'll see. We'll see what happens there. You never know. So, but as that goes, I don't let it run my life.
Yeah. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
let this stuff run.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
This
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah.
No, I have a wife and kids that, my four daughters keep me very busy. And, my wife has a honeydew list that's, as long as a screen.
Funny, do
So,
I like it?
so, uh, but,
But and on
this is
top
what
of
I
that,
do.
you've managed to have over 100 podcast guests in no time. Like you're going like a steam train on both sides, man.
Like two a week. I'm trying. Well, that's where I'm at. And I think I'm probably pretty close to that. You're probably right. Um, I know I'm over 100 and something episodes, but 100 something guests. I've only had two or three return guests, but that's
Hmm.
because they were super interesting. So,
Yeah.
um,
So
you
when it
know,
comes to you, then let's go back to the bottom of the tree because it's I keep looking around and going, how the hell have I gone from a normal job and a so-called respectable career to staring at a webcam and talking to cool people all around the world all the time? And it seems to be starts with an experience, and you've mentioned Sasquatch. So
yeah.
where's
So,
it all started with you?
so for me, my first experience with like a high strangeness was actually a paranormal experience, um, in the house that I grew up in Illinois. And it was a dark and stormy night. and there, and so it actually was though. But um, I it was really, Midwestern storms, tornadoes, the whole thing, like just super scary. Literally, the thunder was like it was like Rip Van Winkle, like the bowling. It was literally like somebody throwing a bowling ball down a lane and then that crash at the end. It was really bad. I was probably eight-ish, 8 or 9, and my dad was out of town, and my mom, I was in my bedroom and my mom was in hers, and I just went in and got in bed with her. I was like, this is it. I'm not sleeping in my bedroom anymore. And I remember shortly after I got into the bed there was like a flash of lightning. A couple actually. It was almost like a strobe light type. This is what I remember at least. Strobe light type of thing, and there was three figures at the end of the bed.
Wow.
And the one in the middle was short. Oh, I can't remember. I'm trying to visualize it again. Yeah, the one in the middle was a little shorter than the other two, but they were all different heights. And I know that the one on the right hand side, because that was the closest one to me, it had the silhouette of like a girl, like had longer hair, right? But I couldn't make out any features or anything like that. But there were three figures standing at the end of that bed. And that house, when we lived in it, was 104 or 105 years old already at that time. Now it's, 100 and I just stopped by there not that long ago because I was driving from Colorado to New York, because I live in New York now. But I stopped and the house looks exactly the same. There's some little bits of difference, and I should have probably knocked on the door, but it was early in the morning, so. Yeah. But either way, it looked exactly the same as when I lived there. Now, other incidents in that house, like my mom and my dad had said that there were weird things that had happened, like, but it's an old house, so what is actually
Hmm.
paranormal? The reason I know I saw those things too is my mom says that has the same story, and because
Right.
I screamed, woke her up, and they were still there, covers over my head. Probably 30 seconds later, brought them down, and they were gone. Um, but I used to also see like I would say it was a dog, but it was always out of the corner of my eye. And it was low to the ground. So who knows? It could have been anything. Shadow figure, could have been something, but it was always like the size and the height of like a dog. But I only could see it out of the side of my peripheral. And that happened quite a bit on that property. So that kind of, I look back now and that was kind of the whole thing. I was always interested in folklore and mythology, things like that. And then I had we I actually moved from that house to another place in Illinois, and I was a Boy Scout, and so we used to go camping quite a bit, and we went to this campsite all the time as Boy Scouts, and it was a pretty big campground. At least it was. Now I'm sure if I went there now, it would seem a lot smaller. But as a kid, everything's that much bigger, right? But we had like free reign of this campground. It was pretty amazing, pretty cool experience growing up. And I feel like we were out there like at least 2 weekends a month, camping, and we got to split up by our squads or whatever you want to call them. And my squad always chose this certain area that was probably about a half a mile. God, it seems so much farther, but it couldn't have been more than probably half a mile to a mile, maybe like 3/4 of a mile total away from the main area where the like scoutmaster stayed and all that. But it was this pine forest that we stayed in, so it had this really cool mat of like pine needles, and it was really cool. But one evening, we it was me and two other boys. We were running a little late because we had to clean something up. I can't remember in our campsite. The rest of the squad had gone ahead because dinner was in the central area. And in between us in our campsite and the central area was the rest of that pine forest. Then there was these two hedgerows that had a road that ran down to the lake where you could like put in boats and all this stuff. There was like it wasn't a beach, but it was like an area where there was water recreation stuff. But there was these two hedgerows on either side of this road. And then there was a open field, like a parade ground type thing. And then the cabins were on the other side of that, right? And we always, because we're lazy boys, not really lazy boys, but we boys, as you know, we like to go from point A to point B in the straightest line possible. There's no, you know what I mean? We don't like to add all kinds of stuff, right? Oh, we got to walk around these bushes. No, we're going to crawl under the hedgerows. And these are like big hedgerows, like 10, 12 feet tall. Kind of like what I picture, the way that I describe it is like if you watch like World War II movies and they had those hedgerows in France, right? That were just major obstacles, regardless of whatever, but they were like that about 3.5, 4 feet thick. But if you could crawl through and under.
Hmm.
So there's two of these. And that's what we would do. We crawl under them because we didn't want to walk all the way around. It would have added a whole whopping like 50 meters to our walk, but that was a lot in those days, right? So we were running because we were late. Sun was going down, and we were headed west directly because the sun was going down right behind that, and we were late to dinner, and I knew we were going to get in trouble. And there's this little like drainage culvert, kind of like just like a little creek that we had to hop over, and then we'd head under this hedgerow. And we hopped over, and in between the creek and the hedgerow is about 20 feet. And as soon as we hopped over that little creek, the hedgerow in front of us like exploded. And there was just this god awful uh, roar, yell thing going on in front of us, and the hedge was literally shaking. And then I remember seeing part of it part at like the near the top, and you could see a distinct outline of what I can only say is a Bigfoot or Sasquatch screaming at us, like just roar. And it wasn't a roar. I don't. You could feel it as much as you could hear it. Um, Absolutely terrifying. I get chills thinking about
Wow.
it now. Like it was traumatic. And so you have the two other boys that were with me. One of them screams at the top of his lungs because he was a younger boy. I was again about 12, I'd say 11 or 12. It had to have been that. I had to have been 12. Yeah, because I was in like the seventh or eighth grade, right in there. Um, but the younger boys, they were like 10, 9, 10, and he freaked. I just remember it seemed like it took so long, like the experience lasted forever, but it couldn't have been more than like 3 or 4 seconds, right? And I just remember seeing that, and then we just like made a hard right hand turn, and I've never run so fast in my entire life. Um, to the edge of that hedgerow, and then I remember us like cutting away from it to go around, and we got to the cabin, and they're like, "What is going on?" And we explained the story, and they were just like, "You guys are full of it," basically.
Yeah.
You guys are full of it. So the three of us were just like standing there, like, nobody believes us. Um, One kid actually had, this is when things actually kind of like they were kind of like, well, what is going on? Because one kid had to go home because he just couldn't handle it. Um, couldn't be out there anymore. The stress was too great, too traumatizing. And he was the youngest. The other kid was never right after that. Um, and he's actually, I don't know about the youngest boy. I don't know where he is now, but the other kid, obviously, I don't want to say his name,
Yeah,
but he is not with us anymore.
yeah,
He actually unalived himself. And I don't know if it was because of this incident, but we never talked about it again. That seems to be a theme with a lot of these types of incidents too.
definitely.
Um, so yeah, that was my first Sasquatch experience. And it was, so it's like I love it when people are like, you're crazy. Am I? Am I though? Because this is what happened to me. Like, so I mean, that's not my first experience. That's my first experience, not my last, right? I've got a
Mhm.
few more. And I tell people, and I've had folks that they weren't like, oh, whatever, but they came out with me and we had an experience. So if you want to know, come, let's go. Let's go out in the woods and let you can have an experience too. And I love how people that always tell you that you're full of it, uh, have never done the research, have never been boots on the ground. I mean, there's people that believe in this that have never had an experience. Because, I mean, not for nothing, I'm a pretty reputable. I mean, there's plenty of courts in the land that would have me as a expert witness for this, that, or the other, from what I've done in my life. Because I was a police officer, I was in the military for 10 years. I mean, now I do consulting work on the side, for lack of a better way of calling it. And people rely on me to make, high level decisions. Do I
Yeah.
necessarily tell them that I believe in Sasquatch? No, but that's not the point. I had this experience, and you know what? You probably know people that have too, and people that you respect. You know, that the way I like to put it is people that you like, know, and trust
Hmm.
have also had experiences. So what do you do with that? Where do you put that? How do you unpack that and then live with it? The only way that I can say is that people just want to live in their world with blinders on, which is fine. I don't get angry. My kids and my wife, frankly, are like that too. They don't not believe me, but like, where's the pictures, Dad? Where's the video? Well, I don't have it. But here's some video from someone else. And now with I think this is also part of the plan to get conspiratorial. I think we're blind. The enemy is blurring the lines between fact and fiction for their advancement in this whole whatever's going on. Right.
I
So,
totally believe that, man. I mean, and a little clear as day example of that. You'd got to talk about the UAP side. You'd got these forward-looking infrared videos that all came out, and they were all leaked. It was there in the Washington Post, backed up by Department of Defense. And just when they were hitting the mainstream and actually getting on network news and stuff like that, all of a sudden there was a ton of new leaked images, and it was like an upside down pan lid and stuff like that.
yeah, instead
But
of the tic tac type
it all
stuff.
looked a little bit like forward looking infrared, but it looked like I'd made it, on my
Right.
home computer. So then if you get somebody that takes a mild interest, oh, maybe there is something to this, they start Googling it, and there's that much trash in the water that you can't see the fish, essentially. Um, so I definitely think that there's a conscious action. But it's very interesting that the ages that you described and the profundity of the experience. That's another crossover with high strangeness, whatever you call it. If you're a shaman, that's the age you do a spirit walk and
Yes,
you
correct.
touch in with all of that side of world. That seems to be. with the UAP side, you talk to people like Jim Semivan, Gary Nolan, head of Stanford University. Okay, this guy's this guy's not a wizard, and he'll say, "Oh, everybody says, well, yeah, this really weird thing happened when I was a kid, and then X, Y, Z, and it seems to be this. It's basically an escalation throughout your life where it's like, oh,
Right.
okay, like so that bit's just settled. Now we'll now add the next layer."
Right. I I've done so much, especially like with the abduction stuff. Most long time are people that know that they've been abducted. It all starts in their childhood, right? And it's like, well, Karen Wilkinson is.
No,
So well, let me get this right. I want to make sure I interviewed her, but um, I just want to make sure.
my head is like Swiss cheese, though. It's full of huge, great big holes.
Right, right. Um, there we are. So Karen, she's an author, public speaker, and I guess she calls herself a UFOologist, right?
Hmm.
But she is a known for her book, Stolen Seed, Evil Harvest, and her work on abductions and UFO phenomenon. And this stuff happened started when she was young and she was like groomed. Um,
Right.
and she's one of the few people that I've researched as UFO abduction phenomenon goes about that actually remembers a lot of her abductions. A lot of people, like I have another friend who, same as a young boy, was abducted, but he doesn't remember beyond the abduction. Like he remembers up to the time when they put him out and he
Hmm.
goes, right? But, so she is, her book was published by L.A. Marzulli, if you know who that is.
Hmm.
Um, who is very into this stuff and this research and has been for, I don't know, the better part of 40 years, right? 50 years, maybe even. Um, and I am of the ilk now by talking to a few of these people. Um, Again, we talk about the connectedness of all of this, right? And that a lot of uh, the alien extraterrestrial stuff that we're dealing with is not necessarily alien extraterrestrial stuff.
Definitely.
And again, do I know definitively? Of course I don't. But you can ask 10 people their opinion and you're going to get 10 different ones because opinions are like
Yeah.
assholes and everybody's got one, right? And they usually stink. Um, but regardless of that being said, um, I kind of lean towards that. Uh, it's more of a interdimensional ongoing than an extra, outside thing. That's not to say that other things don't exist out in the universe, but we even can't even agree on that. We can't
No.
even agree on whether there's even actually space or not. Oh, it's NASA pulling the wool over our eyes. It's the
Yeah.
all
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
space agencies. We live on a, you know, we live on a disc, flat
Yeah.
Earth with,
On the back of a turtle suspended
right
by
or
four
whatever.
elephants. Yeah.
I don't know what to believe, right? I mean,
Yeah.
and some people have like really good evidence and blah blah blah, all the stuff, right? Do we live on a ball hurtling through space, wrapping around the sun in the heliocentric model, or is it something different? I don't know, but what I do know is people that have had maybe not the same experiences, but they have the same visceral effect and biological uh, knowing that I
Hmm.
do because my
Hmm.
body reacts to what happened to me even 40 years later,
Hmm.
right? So, regardless of whether or not the experience is real, it's real to me, right?
Hmm.
So, where does that come from? Where do you go with that? I have no idea. But I err on the side of, yeah, it happened. right?
Yeah, well, the thing is though, like that's such an easy part to miss until you start cutting this thing up. I mean, you take a zebra, okay, and it will go, "Oh, I saw this machine in the sky and I blacked out. I woke up 4 hours later with a sore butt." Okay, it's got no idea what's happened, but
Exactly.
it's got missing time and all of this. Whereas in these cases of let's call it high strangeness, there's always that bit where, like you'll remember up until where it happened, or I'll wake up and there were greys around the bed, and it's like, well,
Right.
why did they let
And I
you?
couldn't move.
Yeah,
Whatever.
exactly. So it's like, why are they kind of giving you this puppet show at all? When it would appear that whatever the form of high strangeness is, it has access to our consciousness and it can tell us to either not be afraid or to be afraid and get the hell out of the way if we're going to be getting into their business. So there is something performative about it because otherwise nobody would remember this stuff. It can't be that hard to
Yeah.
change a
Correct.
monkey's brain so that it
Right.
just
Right.
has no idea. And I wonder how many people have had an experience that's just scrubbed. It tends to
Right.
be a future trauma or trigger event where they go, "Oh my God, do you remember that time that that we saw this thing or this craft
Yeah.
or XYZ insert strange event here." So
Yeah.
there's
I,
something that ontologically shifts in us experiences. And I mean, motive is such a human thing to try and figure out. Anyway, we don't even know why whales do what they do, but
no, we don't.
like
We really know
something of
nothing about anything.
no, that's the healthiest, and I think that's the closest path to truth that there is. I mean, I generally, when I'm listening to new people trying to learn about this, if they say they've got it all figured out, I'm like, nope, no, no, next.
Yeah.
Whereas it's the people that are like, something happened and I have no idea. I'm like, okay, this one gets it.
Yeah. I have people, I get a lot of comments, right? And I have these people that I am looking at, like, where they're so certain in what they're saying to me. And that's fine, but it's not what they're saying isn't about like their own experience. What they're telling me is what I should think or what
Yes.
I should believe. Why are you telling me what I should believe and telling instead of telling me what you believe? That's when I believe people. I don't believe people when they're telling me what I should do or what I could do or hey, this is what you should do with your marriage. I've been divorced 3 times, but this is what you should do. It's the same bullshit. It's the same bullshit with the other things. Like you're giving me relationship advice when you are a complete and utter failure. You could tell me what not to do, and then I would probably believe you.
Yeah.
But don't tell me what to do and don't tell me what to believe. It's the surest fire way for me to just write you off. I won't be it's not that I can't be your friend or that I can't hang out with you and that we can't have an actual civil discourse. That's the other thing. If you get angry about what I say, that's a red flag to me.
Yeah.
Instead of being open, having your mind open enough, especially in this genre of high strangeness, if you're that closed that you can't let anything else in, I think you're in the wrong genre,
Hmm.
folks. I mean, maybe you're not. I mean, I know that we have to niche, some people have to niche down to here, but to be so closed off to the interconnectedness of all of it is insane to me. So I can't take it seriously.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, I mean, the global religion right now is science. That's the thing
Yes.
that shapes what we consider
Yeah,
to be
the
reality.
environment, the this, the that,
Yeah,
it's
but if
some
you
kind of
compare
ology.
today's science to a science from 100 years ago, like you go back 100 years and try and tell people about Wi-Fi and stuff like that, and they would think you were a wizard. They would think you were
14
talking
heads, right?
complete
Oh,
nonsense.
you are a witch or a demon or you're
Literally.
possessed.
Literally,
Yes.
so even this anchor that people cling to, it has is constantly changing for because that's it. I mean, it's the best guess at reality.
Yes,
Science doesn't explain anything. It describes trends. You know,
correct.
it doesn't tell you how the sausage is made. And this kind of thing that we are studying, it's like standing by the side of a road. You can describe what a car looks like and count how many of a certain
Of
color
course.
there are, but we don't know how it was made, why it was made, where people are going, like how we don't know anything more than the observable, and there's a deep, deep, deep ocean underneath the observable that
Yeah.
doesn't
I mean,
fit.
confirmation bias is real. People think they're smarter than confirmation bias or that they can't be manipulated. Everyone's smarter than that, right? Except for do an experiment with yourself and uh actually put so this has happened every it's doing the experiments a little more difficult, but let's say you have a new car and let's just say it's a Honda Accord, all right? Or something even more rare, because a Honda Accord's not rare at all. But you have like some sort of truck, like a Nissan Frontier, and you're driving it around, wherever. Now you're like, wow, you don't think about it in the fact that, you know, there's how many Nissan Frontiers on the road. But as soon as you start driving one, you notice everyone drives a freaking Nissan Frontier, right? That's confirmation bias. That's what happens to us subconsciously a lot because what ends up is what you're familiar with is what you end up, that's the lens you're looking through. And that confirmation bias can change throughout time. So what you have to do is know yourself enough and drop the ego and have a little humility and know that you look through a certain lens and that lens changes. It's like when you go to the optometrist and the eye doctor and they go, this better or this better? Is this better or this better? Right? We all have done this. So um, that's my first piece of advice. Not that anyone's asking for it, but stop it with the confirmation bias and know and admit that that's what it is sometimes. Right. And if you've ruled that out and you're like, oh, well, actually, it's not, then move forward. Right. That's scientific, the scientific method. Right. Now, with that being said, I'm going to head us down a little rabbit hole.
Let's go,
So
baby.
I have had, and this is kind of getting into where I'm coming from at this point because of my experiences that I've had, and that's all that I can go off of, right? And other things that I've been told that I believe. So, uh, as I've said, I was in the military. One of my jobs when I was in the military, I was in the Marine Corps, the United States Marine Corps, and I was a reconnaissance Marine. And we were doing a what is called do combat swimming, which is you know a way of infiltrating by water, right? So, but we used to swim or fin for physical training, right? And just because the more you swim, the better at it you get. Well, we would do these full uh, combat type swims where we would be dragging our packs and everything. We'd have fins on, we'd have our uniforms on, and we would be dragging our packs that were tied off to us behind us. And we had to waterproof that because when you waterproof something like that, it floats, right? Unless it is waterproofed incorrectly. And I had an incident where it was waterproofed incorrectly, and it took a while. It had to have been pinholes because it took at least 40 minutes ish into our fin for it to take hold, and my equipment started sinking. And I was on about a 25-foot tether of that, and it took me down to the bottom. And I was stuck. I could not get up. Now, luckily, we have a swim buddy, but that swim buddy did not notice that I was gone initially. So I had a incident where I was trying to cut the cord, and it's almost like It's almost like I wasn't supposed to. My I literally had my knife out and it would not, my dive knife would not cut the five. It's called 550 cord.
Hmm.
Because it's can hold up to 550 pounds of tensile strength, right? And it's that paracord. That's what it is.
Hmm.
I'm sure we all kind of know what that is,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
But it would not, I could not cut it. And I ended up, I guess, for lack of a better way of putting it, drowning. But my swim buddy, who I love as a brother, was able to rescue me. And I woke up on the rescue boat, just puking and, water, the whole thing coming out of my lungs on the boat. But so I say, with that being said, I didn't have like a near death experience. I wasn't like, I didn't, see Jesus. I didn't see the light. I didn't go anywhere in my brain, but I do distinctly remember uh, being very calm and just like, it was almost beautiful under there. This is what sticks in my head, like these sun rays coming through the water, because I was only about 10 feet below the surface. And you could see the light and everything was I was just calm. Part of that was training though, and I know it. Because we train to effectively, not panic, even when your lungs are bursting and everything in your body's like fight, fight, fight. I kind of didn't, which was really weird. And I just remember everything coming down, and that was it. Is black, and then the next thing I remember is waking up puking. So again, didn't have like the have like an experience, but there was a side effect um, that I learned about within very, very shortly after. I'd say within a month. I'm now able, and ever since then, I've been able to see people's auras
Wow.
and know. Now I can turn it on and kind of turn it off. And I have to concentrate on it. I can't see through it like TV. Like I can't see your aura right now. I can't even
Hmm.
see through like glass, right? I have to see the person directly. Or the dog. I can also see animals, right? And it's not like night vision or something like that. It's not like Daredevil, like I can see, things that, you know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But I also have a sensitivity now too when I know it's an energy thing. So I am also, and this is where we kind of get, I I became a Reiki practitioner, but
Hmm.
I don't I don't subscribe to the Reiki healing the way that Reiki healers do. I don't use the sigils and the I don't it's biblical. It's I draw my power or my energy from the Holy Spirit. Period. I'm a Christian. That's what I believe. Does that mean I'm right? I don't know, but that's what I feel, and that's what I know, and that's what I've been shown by the Holy Spirit. So that's where that comes from for me. So I don't like to use I'm getting away from using the term Reiki
Hmm.
because there's such a negative connotation with it from so many people. But I wish there wasn't. This is
Yeah,
one of the ignorances come because that's what it is. It's Reiki, right? And
yeah,
that's what
yeah, yeah.
people call it instead of it's like, but people have been doing this energy healing since the beginning of time, from
Yep.
Jesus to the disciples to everyone. Now, does that mean that healing doesn't come from evil as well? Of course it does. Certain times, right? If that's where you want it to come from, then again, it's what's in your heart. Um, and I'm saying all this because I'm telling you that I know there's an existence that's outside of our own, and
Hmm.
I know it from experience. there is a veil, there is dimensions, there are these things because otherwise what I'm telling you wouldn't exist.
Hmm. I
Um,
totally agree, man. I do Reiki as well. My auntie Elizabeth was unbelievable, absolutely unbelievable. And my mum, who's also a medium, like
yes,
you can walk in
I
the
love your
room.
stories with your mom.
Oh, thanks, man. But like, I can walk in and she'll be like, "You need to rest that back," and I'll be like, "Yeah, it's really aching," you know. So there's that. But I think that the Reiki with the symbols and everything is useful for giving you permission to do it
Yeah,
in your own head. But now it's just you don't do it's every our reality is based on icons, isn't it? You know,
right.
if I do this, I do that. This button does this thing, and I don't understand the process, but I
Yeah,
don't need to. And yeah, I don't want to hijack the conversation, but everything that you said is perfectly resonates with how I feel about stuff.
right.
Like it,
And so
I do.
often, like people uh, get stuck. I have this other friend who his name is Wes Coons, and I interviewed him not that long ago, and the how do I put it? How did I put it when we talked about it? People's inability for discernment is just shocking,
Mm.
right? Especially when they say they're Christian or they're even like a pastor, right? How do you not if you're a pastor, people are counting on you to have discernment and be able to um help them with that, right? Uh Shockingly ignorant about these things. So they literally, yeah, he had an incident where a pastor had come. He is in real estate as well. A pastor had come to like look at some space to possibly rent from him, and it was just so bizarre. Like there was a picture I think of like it was a healing space, but somebody had like Buddha on the wall, and she was like, "That's a portal and demonic."
Oh,
Like what?
okay.
You know what I'm saying though?
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
It's
like I
weird. There's like I mean, I'm not just throwing bricks at Christianity. This is every faith. Um,
yes, like you
it's
can't be
like
dogmatic about it.
people from that faith can do things like Jesus used to heal people, but you can't. You know, and it's like,
Like
well,
what?
if all we're saying is this is a thing that's been done, this doesn't make me cool or important at all. It's just
No,
it's a thing. Some people can play cards, some people can play the piano. Like that, there's just stuff that people are good at, and
right.
and it's not for you to say that oh no, that way of doing things is evil. Like Buddhists tend to be really nice folks, and I think
Yes.
just
Like again, discernment, being
absolutely
able
right.
to know the difference.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. And I think
I,
the missing word is intention. Like
yeah,
certainly when I
correct.
do Reiki on people, and I've done it on animals, and you can see an animal like react to it, and that's not being told a fairy story that oh I'm going to do this and you're going to
Right.
feel great. It's not a con, um, but your intention is to help, and that is pushes the right icon to trigger the process. It
Yeah, and
doesn't matter.
you're not praying to Satan and saying,
Yeah, or Ozzy Osbourne or anybody else up there, you know, but it's
right.
but
It's just
your
so,
intent is to help, and
yes,
that's what triggers whatever this thing that we have no understanding of. It's not a means of creating a throne for yourself or a hierarchy of,
right.
oh, I'm more spiritual than you because XYZ told me this. It's
Because we all are, we're energy. We are energetic beings. We all have, I mean, one of the biggest universal things that I've seen is this energy torus that we all have, right? There's a reason that during the um I'll just call it the pandemic that they wanted us to stand 6 feet apart, in my opinion. Not that, people weren't hurt by this pandemic, but I feel like there's more to it. than that, folks. You just have to do some research. But either way, the 6 feet apart just happens to be how far our toroidal fields, if we stood 6 feet apart, would be separated instead of being next to each other. That's how you know if someone silently walks up behind you and they're standing within about 3 feet of you, you know it. Why? Because your fields are interlocking and you're getting. It's also crazy that those things, I mean, this is all kind of quantum uh,
Yeah,
physics, right? And this gets proven more and more every day. There's certain things that we just know.
yeah.
Um, and that interlocking of that energy and the manipulation, we can manipulate that to an extent. Um,
Rupert Sheldrake did an experiment with fake mirrors, and somebody sat in the room with a chair, and he said, when you feel like somebody's watching you, if push this button, and it was phenomenally accurate. With yes, when they were being observed, that person would buzz, and other was control subjects of people that never got looked at all, and they never hit the button. Some did, obviously, but that's extra cognitive information. I mean, God, I had a wah-wah pedal for my guitar that wasn't quite wired right, and every time I'd switch it on, I'd get Mexican radio coming through it. Like we are surrounded by all these different frequencies of information all
yes.
the time, and to think that we are just, totally immune from that.
And
I
just
mean,
because you can't see it doesn't mean it doesn't exist.
exactly, exactly. I mean, the term lunatic is because, as you probably know as a police officer, on a full moon, people do crazy stuff, and
Oh,
you get affairs and murders and
yes.
bonkers
Well, so
behavior.
this is one of those instances where and I'm not going to go down this rabbit hole, but where we talk about the moon and the stars and do we live on a round earth or not, right? Well, maybe we don't, but the moon's real because it affects the tides. That's the reason tides exist. And if it affects the tides like that, we're 70% water. How do you think what kind of havoc it wreaks on our body, right? Just
Yeah,
saying.
yeah, yeah. But
And
that's
that's
it. Like,
and that's gravity, that's energy, that's all of it.
yeah. Yeah, yeah. That's one of the points where science gradually meshes in with it's an
Right.
explanation of a describer of a palpable spooky effect.
Yes.
It's
Exactly.
but it's true, and unless you are open to the fact that you are impressionable, then number one, you can be controlled. This is how PSYOP page one starts. Group psychosis and all sorts of other
Oh
dark
yeah.
things that are on the other side of the playbook from trying to help people and educate people and make them aware of their surroundings. But when you look at people like Joe McMoneagle and the remote viewers, and there's profound evidence. Jimmy Carter said the most important thing he saw when he was president was a psychic lady pointed out a crashed Tupolev 22 in Africa and was like within a mile and a half of the crash site. So you know, th these are extraordinary. It's extraordinary
Yeah,
for a reason,
absolutely.
you
Yes.
know. Um,
Um, to link this, so this gift, that's what I call it, this gift that I have to like Sasquatch. So, as of the last few years, I've been doing a lot of research in the Allegheny National Forest. And we've had a couple incidents where I know because I can feel it. And there we go again. I can feel it. I just know when I can walk into a house and tell you if it's there's something there, like an entity or not. Now I don't speak to dead people. I don't, it's not like that. I don't get premonitions or I don't hear voices when it comes to that stuff. I just don't. I kind of wish I did sometimes because it'd make things a lot less confusing. But uh one of the things that I can do is that like if I'm walking through the woods and there's a deer, right? Which is pretty normal. You see a deer, I can tell you that, I can see its aura. Okay. Even at night. Like, but not like pitch black. If I, for some reason it doesn't work, and like I say, it's not like Daredevil or
yeah,
I can't see it like night vision. But if I know it's there and I concentrate enough to exactly where I know that it is, I can see it. Does that make sense?
Hmm.
Well, there's been a few times that I um, have known that there was something, and it's kind of become the fact that it was a Sasquatch because of the things it did, um, with a yell or a howl or samurai chat or things like that, and I know where it's at, um, within a pretty good scope. Of it's got to be only like 3 meters this way to 3 meters that way. So like we're talking about a pretty narrow field, and I can't see I can't see an aura.
Ah, okay.
So I to me, that's a tell,
Hmm.
um, about maybe what is going on there, right? So I don't know everything about souls. I don't know everything about whatever, right? But I feel like things that are on this planet usually have a life force of some sort. Like I can't kill a deer, like chop it up and put it back together and then give it life again. That's not something we can do. That's the spark. Whatever that is, right? Whether it's a soul, whether it's spirit, something's breathing life into that. I mean, you can even see it now. Like they've got video of that what the exact moment of inception, there's a flash of light.
Wow.
And what is that? Right? There's an effect. It's like zinc something or other. I can't. But look it up. And you'll see like when a female egg or whatever gets fertilized, there is a flash of light. Okay. So with that being said, um, always there's like always the saying that these Nephilim, that's what I'll call it, the
Hmm.
Nephilim, are the offspring of the sons of God, meaning angels,
Hmm.
for lack of a better description, and the daughters of men, right? And they created these things, but allegedly they're irredeemable, right? Um, so I feel like uh, I don't know if they have the same spark. Does that
Hmm.
make sense?
Yeah.
Um, so that's something I'm trying to piece together right now. But I don't see auras on these things, which is means they're totally different. Something's
Yeah.
totally different. Obviously, I mean they're not just bipedal walking apes, or dogmen, or I'm talking about all cryptids, though, not just Sasquatch, right?
Hmm.
So um, yeah, I don't
But
know why I
that's
was going down
like
that rabbit
life
hole,
is a
but
lot weirder than just physical things. I mean, if you think about, we were talking about the pandemic before, but if you think about a virus, we treat it as a single entity that like grows and goes around the planet. When you look
right,
at a murmuration of starlings, you know, that's almost like it's a thing that we call that gets a different name. Alan Watts talked about a whirlpool, and he's like, it's a description of the motion of water, but it takes on a thing. They'll say, "Oh, look at that, that's a whirlpool," and it's a almost an intelligence. So I think in the same way that a few hundred years ago we didn't know there was a mycellular network, and now we don't really know what it does, but we know it's a thing. A
yeah,
few hundred
that's
years
what I was
before
just gonna
that,
say too.
we had no idea of microbiology, and until somebody looked at pond water under a microscope, and then we're like, oh my God, there's this. We thought this was complicated, and if we look down,
Right,
so I'm very open to the fact that there's something weirder than us, just because we are the one of the few species that can go, what am I? Why am I here? That
right.
there's something that doesn't fit our playbook.
It's almost like Avatar, like James Cameron's got something right with that type of thing, right?
Yeah,
When you bring up mycelium, um,
yeah.
and fungus under the ground, like the network of stuff underground in the forest. Like you can't even imagine. Um,
No.
and allegedly, I mean, why wouldn't they be able to? They can, in some sort of essence, talk to each other, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, whether it's
Yeah.
just, oh, well, that's just impulse. Well, it's some sort of communication, you know?
Yeah, they studied
So
damage in a pine forest, and I don't know how, but through some form of electrical response, when there was one on fire on one side, all of the other trees were changed electrical behavior, is all I can say, because that's all that we
it's
know. I'm not
just
saying they were like, oh my
amazing.
God,
But it's
Jim's on
amazing.
fire, but
Yeah.
there was some metaphysical effect on other ones. They've also done that thing where they did some experiment where they would burn the leaves of a plant, and then somebody gets a cigarette out, and that thing again, the electrical impulses. I'm not going to attach any emotion or anything like that. Changed, so that was an extra physical reaction, a stimuli.
Yeah.
It's so weird. I know we fall into the problem of anthropomorphizing everything and giving everything human methods and motives. Like that's the worst mistake that people do with this UAP. It's like they're here for this because of space politics, and it's like no other species has politics. Like it's crazy
Right.
to think, they're probably way beyond that. And it's the
Absolutely.
same with these things. We can only assign a description based on the playbook of reality that we have, and stuff just doesn't fit. It's not like we've got anything figured out.
And they have to be okay with that. I, it's there's again, it comes back to like ego. We're not going to know everything. I mean, maybe we will someday, but it's not right now.
Yeah. But
Um,
when you look at like the great cathedral builders, they didn't set out to build Notre Dame Cathedral because they knew they'd finish it and get to sit down and cross their legs and go, "Yes, we did that and we've nailed it." You've got to build stuff for the next generation or seven generations in the future
yeah,
to go,
right.
these guys put the tent pegs in and we got the thing figured out.
Yeah. No, we don't. We don't have any of it figured out. Not
So,
really.
so I mean, so where's your head at then? Back to you being an experiencer. Like, what do you think? I'm not going to say why you, but what do you think the effect on you has been?
I have no, well, let me tell one more story.
Yeah,
So I
please.
said that I don't have UAP experience. I don't per se, but I have an experience where something happened and I don't know, but I really can't put my thumb on it or my finger on it because I don't know. I just don't know. And maybe other people have experiences that are like this, but and then they're like, wow, I'll never tell that story or whatever. But this is when I was in the army. I was also in the army. I started in the Marines, but then I went into the
Well,
US
there's a
Army.
story in itself.
It's bizarre. But anyway, I became a soldier and I was stationed in upstate New York, which is, and I say the upstate New York, it's the North Country because it's 28 miles from the Canadian border. That's where I was stationed. Well, the closest big city to their city is relative term is Syracuse, New York. So my buddy and I were down. We had gone down. This was a Friday night. We had gone down and we were actually going to spend the weekend in Syracuse with another one of our buddies was dating a girl and like, it's just to get us out of Watertown, which is the town that Fort Drum is in for a weekend at least, just time away, like one night. And so we went down there, we went to a bar and we were drinking and we got a call from our buddy, ended up that it wasn't going to work out. So we were like, well, do we get a hotel and just chill out or do we just go back? It's about an hour drive. And I was like, you know what? Let's just go back. I'll sleep in our own beds, right? Um, and I had some drinks, but I wasn't, you know, who hasn't had two drinks and then driven, right? Should you? I'm not saying that you should. I'm just saying I felt fine. I was wide awake. uh, and it was like 11 o'clock at night. Now, uh, this is one highway, and it goes from Syracuse to Canada. Like there's nothing in between it, right? Well, there's two bridges. And I, we were driving, music was playing kind of loud, kind of, hey, help keep me awake or whatever. But my buddy had just crashed out. So, but I'm wide awake and I'm looking, counting the exits. Like I want to get home, but I'm not like dying or anything I'm not unsafe at this point. So I see this exit, um, which is the exit before the exit that we're getting off. And it's literally a mile and a half from that exit to the next, which we get off at. So I was like, yes. And so I remember saying, man, we're almost home. Awesome. Next thing I remember is this Thousand Islands Bridge, which is the bridge that crosses the St. Lawrence River, the first bridge that crosses the St. Lawrence River, um, on your way to Canada. It's 30 miles away from where I was. And I remember absolutely nothing between that exit and the bridge.
Wow.
And I don't know. See, this is the problem is I cannot remember times. I can't remember like looking at the clock and being like, oh yeah, we got made good time. It's like 11:30 or 11:45. I don't remember. And I also don't remember the time when I woke up. Or because that's how I would describe it. I would describe it as waking up like being late for work. Like, oh my God. And there's this giant lit up suspension bridge crossing the St. Lawrence River in front of me where you have to stop at a toll booth and pay the toll. I paid the toll, went across the bridge, turned around and came back and drove straight home. And I woke my buddy up and I was like, dude, what the hell? And he's like, what are we doing here? I'm like, I have no idea, man.
Wow.
So that's what I call my alien abduction story.
Yep. But that's how, I mean that's there's so many interesting bits to that. Like you said, I mean it's not like you just dozed off.
No, I mean it would be one thing like there's very little traffic on that road. I mean it's a major highway. It's I-81. The one thing I have thought about, just I'm trying to think of the simplest explanation
Mm.
would be that like I fell asleep. I just can't believe that though, that I fell
Go
asleep
for
and then went
30
from like
miles.
rumble strip to rumble strip for 30 miles
Yeah,
without
no.
waking up and going, what are you doing, bro?
But then
Take a
also
nap.
like another bit that sticks out is the fact that you were counting the exits down and you're on that penultimate one and it's like,
Yep.
yeah, we're almost so like
Yeah. I was well
we've all
aware
done a
of it.
long drive and you know that when you can go into that flow state of driving, but when you get to like that point, that's when you're like, okay, it's time to
Yeah,
wake the
because
old system up and
I've got
away
to
we
think
yeah,
because
we've got to
I
steer
need to get
soon
off at
and
right.
stuff. So it's not like that would be the point where after that length of drive you're just like, oh, okay, you
Ooh,
know.
you're right. It doesn't make any sense. Right. Correct. Agreed with that, man.
That's so interesting. But that's the elusive nature of this stuff. Like that's the end of the road as far as the conclusions you can draw from it, isn't it?
Yeah. And one of the things that I actually have tried to do hypnotherapy
Oh wow.
to like regression to remember, and they can't hypnotize me.
Really?
Really. I'm one of those people that just does not take it. I can't. I've tried to do it to quit smoking. I've had multiple different hypnotherapists work with me, and I've never been able to go down.
Interesting, man.
And which that's it's not. I wouldn't say it's common, but it is. It's a thing.
It's
There are
another
people
chocolate in
that
the box. Yeah.
there are people that yeah that you can't. This don't. They're not susceptible to it, and I'm
I've
one
always
of those
been
people.
I I I don't know whether it's 99% probably a character trait, but I feel extremely uncomfortable with the idea of being hypnotized. And I've had weird stuff happen. It's not like I've got any great skeletons in any closets, but I just feel like when there's all this weird stuff going in, and your whether it's your brain or morphic fields or whatever, but there's so much that we don't understand, and I feel really deeply uncomfortable with giving somebody else the steering wheel.
Yeah, giving them those reins, right?
Yeah, yeah, and it's not a trust issue. It's just like no, 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 no. You wouldn't let your buddy do neurosurgery on you and stuff like
No,
that with their experience level.
no.
There's just something about it that's deeply
Yeah,
uncomfortable.
right. So I, yeah, I, it's one of those things like I'm just like, I don't know where to put it.
No,
So when I say I guess I do say that I do, it's my alien abduction story because I don't know what else it would be.
yeah.
Um,
Well, I
yeah,
respect you drawing the line at the bits that you can understand and not, oh, so it must have been the Orionids doing this because they're up to
the
their old
Palladians
tricks
came and
again.
got me.
Yeah, the damn
I don't,
reptilians with their memory guns. So
yeah,
I
I
guess
don't,
a missing piece then is what inspired you? Because this is something that's a parallel to me, but what made you go from having these experiences and researching it yourself to broadcasting seeds and creating this platform for others?
um, so I, s- I've just always been attracted to podcasting in general, right? And this is not my first podcast by any stretch. I've been podcasting for 11 years now, with some form or fashion of a podcast from 2014 till now. Um, little breaks here and there. I think the last gap was like 2 years, but I always come back to this, right? So, but it's always about me um, sharing some sort of knowledge, right? Whether it's veteran transition or and like suicide prevention or entrepreneurship. I'm also an entrepreneur. I've owned and sold a couple of businesses, and this is a very entrepreneurial practice, as you know. Um, but so I really, so well the pandemic kind of brought a lot of people around to a lot of time to think, right? So I was like, well, what do I really want to do like when I grow up, right? And um I've always had these like this inclination for this type of stuff, like sharing, whether you want to call it just sharing knowledge or ministry or whatever. I don't know. Um, and I've always had that sense of like I am not your normal like preacher, pastor, but I I think that way, but I don't act that way, I guess you could say, because anyway, but it all kind of has that pastors usually have that same drive to share knowledge on things, right? But all I like to do is share knowledge through my lenses. I don't want to put it on other people. That my here's my experience. What's yours? I've always been adverse to telling people what to do, except for my kids. But you know. So with that being said, something has always drawn me to this, pushed me towards this whole broadcasting seeds, and that's how I've always looked at it with my work in like mental health and whatnot. This is a culmination of that, is planting seeds and then harvesting them, or allowing people to harvest their own seeds, because that's how ideas get started. That's how movements get started. That's how revolutions and everything else get started, is by planting seeds. So I'm like the play on words broadcasting, because what do you do when you plant grass? You don't go through and just do one seed at a time. You broadcast it, right, through a broadcaster. So I look at the mic and the airwaves as my broadcaster, and I'm just planting seeds in people's minds. So I just want people to think independently of what they've been told and put in, I that's my mission. Does that
I
answer
love
your
it.
question?
I
Yeah.
think perfectly, man. I love the fact that you're telling people it's okay to be weird. It's okay not to fit in the box
So,
because
okay.
we don't know what the box is, you know. The
Right.
box changes. And just
Yeah.
because you're not in it at the moment doesn't mean it isn't going to catch up.
I mean,
Um,
I go and I do I've lectured in front of rooms of budding entrepreneurs, and I call it flying my freak flag high. Hey, I have a I have a podcast where I talk about Sasquatch and all these crazy ideas. And yes, I do believe in that. And yes, I do whatever. And that's like a lot of times that's people see that as like suicide in business or in whatever. But I've actually found that if if you're being honest with yourself and who you are, that is a huge, because we do things and we spend time with people and we listen to people that we, again, I'll bring it up, that we like, that we know, and that we trust, right? And so I want to be as authentic and real as possible because I'm not blowing smoke up anyone's tail at all with any of this stuff. And that's just how it works. And it seems to be working. I mean, I've got a decent. I mean, I get a lot of flack too because there's always haters. Right? We all get the haters, but I look at them and the haters like that, I feel sorry for them. I'm just like, man, why are you so closed off? Like, let's open it up, man. Open your heart to what's going on.
yeah.
And I might be completely wrong, but I don't think I am. And I act accordingly.
Yeah,
So,
man. I think it takes a lot of strength to be vulnerable to
yes,
others.
for sure.
And I've done a couple of talks for groups, and you can see the ones being seen to be giggly and like, oh, get a load
And
of
they're
this
like,
guy.
oh, here we
But it's
go.
always at the end of the talk
Yeah,
when a half dozen people will come over and be like, I've never talked about this, but I've had this weird thing happen too. And then it's
exactly.
you give people a safe space be to not
Because why?
understand what's
We
going on.
live in a world that is so freaking weird. I mean, the weirdest shit happens every day
Yeah.
to maybe not to you every day, but like if you sat back and you thought about just the stuff and how it goes down, you're like, man, how does this even real? Right? So,
Could not
it's
agree
like my
more.
kids always say this thing, like they'll look at me and I'll talk about something and they'll look at me and go, you're not even real, and I'm like, okay. So
Yeah,
it,
I love it, man. I love it. So one final question then. So if you had infinite means, what would you do with broadcasting seeds?
oh, I'd still do it the way that I'm doing it. I mean,
Yeah.
I would, if I had infinite means, I would just advertise it. I would actually advertise it. Instead of just, kind of doing this organically. Um, yeah, I'd have a really badass studio. Really bad, I always think of like Tony Merkel and the Confessionals. I don't know if you ever listened to
No.
that podcast, but his studio is legit. Another guy like the Blurry Creatures guys. I don't know
Oh
if you've ever
yeah.
heard of them, but they
Yeah,
have
yeah, yeah.
their whole, they're like the same age as me. So they're 80s kids
Yeah.
and they have like a whole 80s basement vibe,
Yeah.
like Stranger Things and
I
stuff.
love it. Yeah.
So I would do something like that, but I would love, yes. So if I had infinite means, I'd handle this like Joe Rogan. I'd have a killer studio and I'd pay people to fly out and have dinner with them and all the stuff like that and get to know them one on one, not through a, you know. So yes, Tom, I would fly you to the United States if you wanted, or
Oh, I'd
who knows,
love
maybe
to.
I'd even fly to you and whatever.
You
I'm
join
just
me in my
saying.
little bedroom here, and we
Right.
can.
Well, whatever. We'd have a place that infinite means would be able to grant you,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
And we'd be doing a killer podcast episode. So yes,
absolutely.
I truly I'm in it, man.
Yeah,
I just had my 1 year anniversary for this podcast. What's today? The 30th.
yeah,
So it was the 27th. It was
it
Friday.
was. Yep,
So yes, that would be you know, I'll do this for the rest of my life.
love it. Well, dude, I can't wait to see what comes next, and I can't wait to do more stuff with you wherever you need.
Absolutely.
You need the relevant weirdo. Let's have some fun and see what we can do.
For sure. Absolutely.
Well, thanks
Yeah,
so
man,
much, man.
you're in the rotation, my friend. It's there. You know what I mean? So,
Yeah, yeah,
and
yeah,
that's how I look at it. I'm fiercely loyal to people as well, just so you know. And if I meet like-hearted people, I mean, and we can have civil discourse and disagree, but if I believe you're a good person and we get along, then I'm your friend. You know what I'm
yeah,
saying? So it's one of those things too, is uh always be open to those people coming from a different spot. It means the world to your understanding. So
yeah.
anyway,
Man, I respect that so much. I really do. You are, sir, a rock star, and I really, really appreciate it. I can't wait till
thank
next
you
time.
very much. I agreed. So are you. You're you're the man. I
At
love it.
least we're weird, but we're in the same boat.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
I'm gonna hit that.